public.
No. Okay, and so I will now convene the Kent Conservation Commission at 6:35 on February 8th. Okay, so the first item of business on the agenda is to amend if necessary and then accept the agenda. We do have a request to be heard from a member of the public, Bruce Bennett, here tonight. And so I would say that we add Bruce's item under new business. Do you want to call it something?
So what we are, so we're the Housatonic Herbicide Working Group.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to add that under new business, which will be 6C, but we may choose just for, just to spare Bruce and give him a quick hearing to move that up in the agenda once we've accepted our minutes, etc.
Can I?
And don't we also need to discuss our spring activities? We usually start talking about that in February.
Is anyone prepared to discuss our spring activities this evening?
No.
No.
Can we add the bottle bill down to the legislative watch? Because that's big and that's happening tomorrow, I think. No, Friday, I think.
Okay.
I put the number though, so someone will have to look it up.
Okay. And then Bruce, can you just tell me Housatonic herbicidal?
Oh, so the Housatonic Herbicide Working Group.
Herbicide working group. Okay.
But if we want to discuss that sooner rather than later, then we have to say that now. We have to put it up higher.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I would like
I think we should do that.
Earlier.
I mean, I'd like Bruce to stay for the whole meeting, but we don't have to do that to him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so 2 amendments to the agenda. One is to add the new business Housatonic Herbicide Working Group. The second is to add under 6B legislative watch list the bottle bill. Any other changes to the agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
Motion to accept as amended.
I second it, Wendy, here.
Thanks, Wendy. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
I'm raising. And so that will carry. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to amend and then accept the minutes from January 11th. Liddy pointed out earlier that there was an error on the very bottom of the draft minutes that were distributed where the next meeting was listed. So it said the next meeting was January 11th. I'd forgotten to change it. And so one amendment that I know that we will make is to have that say February 8th.
Yep.
Are there any other amendments to the minutes?
No, they look good.
Yeah,
Motion to
good.
accept as written. With one change. Yeah.
I'll second that motion with the change.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? And seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you. We don't have Liddy here at the moment, so let's skip over the treasurer's report. Our only member of the public is Bruce, and so this would probably be a good time to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you all for hearing me. I really appreciate it. Our group has been working on this for a while, but we're just trying to just about ready to get it up to stuff. So how this all started was 2 years ago in Cornwall, the Housatonic Railroad Company started a spraying exercise. And as a result of that, they killed hundreds of trees along the railroad tracks in Cornwall. The devastation was done in Cornwall more so and visible there more so than it is in other towns, because we had a lot of white pines along the railroad tracks. And the white pines were especially affected by the herbicide cocktail that they were using. So the deal is that it is federal law that the railroads herbicide the railroad beds. They do it with a combination of herbicides that are both pre-emergence and post-emergence. Some of these herbicides are long lasting. They all, though, are highly water soluble. So we are concerned that the damage that was done to the trees was primarily through these herbicides running off the sides of the railroad track and entering the root systems of the trees. And what this also means is if that was a fact, then it's also going into the wetlands. The other problem is that along with the track that the right of way that the railroad is using, of course, runs along the Housatonic River. And it not only affects that, but there are also tributaries that run into the Housatonic River. So I have a map. I don't know whether you all can see this, but this is a map that we put together that does several things. It's state.
Yeah, there you go.
But then they can't see. It's
Maybe you could email it.
I will. Well, I intend to
Following
give
the
this to
meeting.
you so
Okay.
that you have a copy right now.
Great,
This
thank
is
you.
just a preliminary, but it's pretty good. And what we've done is we've noted where all the rivers were that crossed the tracks. We noticed where it comes very close to the river. And we've also noticed all the wetlands along the way that have been impacted. And of course, the railroad tracks going through South Kent past Camp Getaway and Mudge Pond is right in the waterway. So there's no question sides are running into the waterway and impacting the aquatic plants as well as the aquatic animals that are in that area. You'll also know, if you can see this, this is south. So this is Scotticook Road. Okay, this is south right here where it goes out in this area. All of these circles are in green are Kent National Diversity areas.
Mhm.
So not only are they wetlands, but they're national diversity as well.
NDDB, the
Yes.
Natural Diversity Database.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. That's
Mhm.
where we got that from. So the impact of these herbicides in Kent is worse even than it is in Cornwall. Back to the group a little bit. What we've done is we have gotten 2 members from each town along the river, from Canaan, North Canaan, Falls Village, Cornwall, Kent, and New Milford, that are all working on this project. And we have come up with what we would like to happen. Each year, the railroad is responsible to give the town a list of the herbicides that are going to be sprayed, as well as a 21-day period when that herbicide will be sprayed. Our problem is that the environmental laws in Connecticut, which was much to my surprise, are significantly weaker than they are in Massachusetts. This railroad also goes up into Massachusetts and is required to utilize much more strenuous regulation in Massachusetts than they are here. And what they do is they start using different herbicides, a different concoction, much more intense spraying from the Connecticut line down. What we hope to do is to be able to, at first, ask the railroad nicely to be able to conform to the Massachusetts regulations, which are very reasonable in light of the fact that they must spray herbicides on the railroad tracks. And hopefully that will remediate the issues that we are sure is happening along the river. If they won't do that, then phase 2 will be for us to go to the legislation, which I think, as you all know, will be a long haul. But we will pursue that avenue. And of course, it'll take quite a few years for us to be able to get that through. We're hoping that the railroad will just abide by our regulations. As of yet, our association in Cornwall, which I know of the railroad, has been at the very least rocky. They are not nice people, don't seem to really care about PR. And we found them very difficult to be able to deal with in Cornwall. We have, however, dealt with DOT, who owns the right-of-way and has the control over it. And they have agreed in our town to do some no-spray zones. So we're thinking that if we run into a head wall with the railroad, we will go then to DOT and DEEP and see if we can't get some changes made through that direction. So what we're asking you all is to give us a letter or notification or in some way agreeing with our approach and support our effort so that we can bring this to the railroads and then the legislatures if necessary to see if we can't get more control over what's being done along the railroad tracks. And I thank you.
Bruce, have you spoken to Maria Horn about this?
We have. And in fact, Maria Horn was at a meeting with me last year where we walked the railroad tracks with our first selectman and several representatives of the railroads and pointed out the tree death that was alongside the railroads. And of course, the problem is those trees are falling into town roads as well. So the answer is yes, we have been in contact and are working with Marie on this.
What about Steve Harding?
We've just notified him of our effort. So we will be working with him as well. And we do find him pretty interested in this endeavor. So we'll be working with both of them.
And the Rivers Alliance?
We have Housatonic Valley Association that is supporting us. And we have Housatonic River Association that is also supporting us, as well as the Trouts Unlimited.
Bruce, do I understand then your goal is to have no spray zones? Your goal has nothing to do with dealing with what they're spraying or
No, in fact, there is a chemical that they are spraying that we are trying to eliminate, which is a terrible chemical that not only leaches into wetlands, but it leaches into groundwater. So once it starts running off, it goes all the way down. So no, we're looking to have them change that cocktail of chemicals that they're using and conform to the one in Massachusetts, which is much better.
what is the chemical that you're referring to? What's the name of it?
I was just looking for that name.
You knew we'd ask.
Yeah, I had it.
It was like here somewhere.
This is a different document.
Oh, it is.
I have to give you, yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Do you have information that we can circulate around, what Massachusetts does and
Yeah.
how that differs from Connecticut? We don't need to hear it all today.
No.
Do you have a form of a letter of support that you would prefer that we use?
Okay, so what we have is I have this, which will tell you who we are and what we're looking to do. We have a comparison between the Massachusetts herbicide and the Connecticut herbicide, so that you can see how the difference between the two approaches. And we will be creating a letter that we will give to you and the first selectman and the inland wetlands that will support us, that you will be able to sign hopefully and get to us in
Okay.
a timely fashion.
So
this
is the
letter be
railroad subject to different rules than others are as far as applying pesticides, herbicides?
The railroads are under the control of DET, not DEEP, which is a problem in itself. So it's very difficult to be able to get to them or to hold them responsible for what they're doing. They do not need to notify of the spraying, only of the fact that they will be spraying sometime within a 24. They don't need to do any notification to neighborhoods or schools or anything else when they're spraying. So they can just spray at will through the various areas. And in Connecticut, there are no spray zones. In Massachusetts, they were called critical areas. And all of these critical areas, like that one in South Kent, at Hatch Pond and Camp Getaway, that whole area would be in no spray zone. In Connecticut, it is a spray zone.
Do you know for a fact that they're spraying like corridor wide, that they're just, do they?
Yeah.
So they like just run a train through that's like
Yes.
essentially just
Correct.
the whole time.
Right. What they have is they have a special machine that runs down the railroad tracks that sprays out on both sides. Their right of way is 50 feet from the center line of the track.
Yeah.
Over to the right and 50 feet over to the left. So it's 100-foot wide that they actually can control all of the materials and supplies.
It goes right into Hatch Pond, for example.
Right into Hatch Pond. Goes right into Hatch Pond. It goes right into Camp Getaway. That pond, where it is, it goes right into the water coming out of the waterfall in Kent Falls, because that's a very narrow trestle area there when they go.
Right, not
So
want to
why
go
did the
this far,
start-
but I'm thinking of Pete Buttigieg and whether the Department of Transportation ought to be informed of this. I have a feeling that if he knew about it, there might be a national movement.
Yeah, that's phase two. We're not gonna stop at this, but
Yeah.
we are just gonna keep right on going.
All right.
How is our letter gonna help you?
So our letter, what you're doing is you're giving us a letter and showing the railroad, hopefully, that it's not just Cornwall, it's all the towns along the railroad bed that are concerned about this blatant use of herbicides, so that we can go to them and we can say, listen, you're going to have a PR problem because we're going to make it for you. And what we want you to do is a very reasonable thing. We want you to do the same spraying that actually they are also doing in their track in Massachusetts, that they are doing in Massachusetts. We don't want to change when you get to the border. So that's what we're hoping your letter will do for us, is to give us the support to be able to go to them and say, we have a lot of support here. This is what we'd like to say.
I think you're here to have our attention, and that there are members of our group who are likely interested in your group,
Yeah.
even outside of the commission. But it would be helpful to have that template letter of support. And if you don't have one, we can write one, but we want it to say exactly what you want it to say. So if you want to write it for us, that's great.
Right.
And the information, and we meet once a month. So, and we try not to dialogue on email, because that is, not the way that towns must conduct business.
Right.
But if you can get it to us sufficiently before our next meeting, we can have the information disseminated amongst the members and have the letter to ready to go out after our March meeting, which will
Great.
be March 8th.
Okay.
Might it be better for each town to specify particularly sensitive locations in their town, so that this doesn't sound like one letter?
So we have a map, and what we are going to do on this map, which is, a lot in plastic, is we're going to draw out the sensitive areas on these maps.
Okay.
We will be able to present that when we present the letters of support from the various towns. So they'll know where all those restrictive areas are.
In terms of the poisons going deep into the soil, I'm thinking about the river being the place where the Kent's major aquifers are, some of the biggest aquifers around. Seems to
Right.
me we ought to be mentioning that.
Yeah, that whole valley is an aquifer. The
Right.
whole Kent Valley is an aquifer. We at the greenhouse, we have wells that produce over 100 gallons a minute. So there's a lot of water under the ground
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
And
we
to make it even worse, this is an old riverbed, of course, so there's nothing but sand and gravel under us.
that's right. That's what makes it the aquifer.
Exactly. So nothing
Let's
stops.
mention specifics in each town.
And how often do they spray, and when do they spray? And
Okay,
why
so
did they start
usually they
only
spray-
2 years ago?
Usually they spray after the first weed flush, because they're doing with post and pre development.
We
So-
recently got the Tech Associates is, I guess, the contracted
Yes.
vendor that does the vegetation management plan for the Housatonic Railroad, and I just emailed it to both of you, so.
Okay.
um,
I've been curious about that, because I remember when legislation was passed a few years ago, and we actually spoke about it in this commission. We talked about this new provision that was going to make railroads responsible for letting towns know when they were spraying. I never heard another thing about it, but
Oh,
we did,
really?
of course, notice when everything died on the side of the
right.
rail, on the side of the rails that summer. So I wasn't aware that notice was actually being sent out.
And I want to put these up on our website. Maybe they should go on the Conservation Commission page, or
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
find
I
a-
I
proper
don't
place
know
for
that the
that.
onus should be on select board staff to do that. I don't understand why notice couldn't go out to conservation commissions and in the wetland commissions.
Exactly.
mhm.
Because those are the municipal bodies that are tasked with overseeing these things.
Correct. Yeah.
I said, why should it be on the Board of Selectmen to decide and to be responsible for distributing it to everyone?
I agree.
I think you said that there were 2 people from each town on this board. Who are our 2 people in Kent?
Well, there's only me, but I thought I might be able to grab somebody else out of this group.
I like the subject. I'll step in.
Wendy?
You got Wendy.
Okay, Wendy, I knew I was
My
gonna.
cold is over.
By the way, if I can tell you now, you ask about the chemical, this really is something that you should know. It's called Method 240 SL. Method 240 SL.
Such a benign name.
It's a bad chemical. It just shouldn't be used. Roundup looks like a golden goddess compared to this stuff.
So their cover letter says that it is anticipated that herbicide application will commence after March 1st, depending on weather conditions and other factors.
Right. We're trying to get as much information together as we can by March 1st in order to be able to present this to them to see if we might make some changes. They are not going to spray March 1st. They just want to give you that date as a start date. So we're hoping to be able to get compile all the information that we have before that and get that to the.
That'd be helpful.
to
I was just thinking that maybe to make it easier for Bruce to talk about his appearance tonight, what if we had a motion that we're gonna do this letter and that we all agree on it, and then it won't make it easier for us next month. We still have to write it and sign it, but at least he can go away saying that we've decided that we're gonna support him with a letter.
Do you mind, Carol, if we get the full information first so that we can read it? It's nothing, I mean, it's just as a matter of, being able to have it.
No problem.
Part of our record.
Due process.
We've changed it. What I'm wondering,
Oh, you
can I
did.
get a copy of this?
Absolutely.
And
I
I,
can give you that too, and if
I
you
have no
can't get
doubt
that,
that we'll be issuing your letter, so you
Okay,
can
that's
count on our support. I think that it just bears consideration. It would just be, as Mike was saying, a better process if we made sure that we were able to view it all.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a good idea, and I'll give you that comparison so you can see what it is. You'll have a lot more information, and I'll get that done to you tomorrow.
it's great, and you may know that we are heading into the pollinator pathway in our commission.
I hear
And
that.
so to hear you speak about something being worse than Roundup, it would be really interesting to us to know whether or not neonics are being used. And I mean, I find it frustrating that they'll be banned for residential use, but not for this kind of broadcast by
That's right.
corporations.
Well, they're not going to be banned for any commercial applicator to be able to use Roundup. It'll only be the residential
I
use.
know.
And
Wow.
so I think
What?
that,
Has anybody considered putting up signs along the area right after spraying takes place? I wouldn't want to go fishing in Hatch Pond if I knew that it had just been sprayed under these circumstances.
that is normally the protocol for spraying by the DEEP, but the railroad is exempt from that responsibility.
Hmm.
But
It's
the town can't override it as a local matter.
no, well.
We're working on it.
I'll have these guys come down and talk to you all.
You're
And how about neighbors who live like within 100 feet from the railroad?
Yeah,
Should
like
they be
Brookwoods.
notified? I mean, I live at Brookwoods. Some of my neighbors live within 100 feet from the railroad, or 50 feet from the railroad.
Yeah.
So close over there.
So I'm, just to give you a little bit of my background, I am a supervisory pesticide applicator, which is Joe, so did you take that program?
Oh, me?
Yes.
No.
It's a very intense program. It requires written exams, verbal exams, and explanation of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And you have to go to class every year for CEUs in order to be able to maintain that license. So there's a lot of education that goes behind that license. The problem is, and this is what I talked about this afternoon, is that it's not the guy with the license that's doing the spraying. It's the guy hired to do, the guy with the license that hired the guy to do the spraying. And they're just not aware. I would even say that you really can't blame them. They're just not aware of the potential damage that can happen. That's the problem.
Okay, well, thank you.
Oh, I do have one last thing. I'm sorry.
No.
I so appreciate
Well,
this.
no, I mean, it's just, it's depressing.
Yeah, it's depressing. I met with the DEEP last week or the week before to discuss the issue and are concerned about the herbicides running into the wetlands because it's very expensive and very difficult for us as private citizens to be able to do the tests necessary to be able to say, yeah, it's there and it's bad. But the head of the DEP told me that if we're concerned right after the spraying, call them, they'll come down, take samples and run them through their lab, that's fantastic. Because if we can prove it, we are way ahead of the game. So we're going to be utilizing that.
That's great.
Good, good.
I just need somebody to sleep on the railroad tracks so that they can see when they spray it. So they know when they spray it, so we can get the DEP there right away.
How about a remote trail cam?
I was gonna say those.
Oh,
There's cameras everywhere.
There's cameras
Why wouldn't we?
everywhere.
why wouldn't we?
Remote
That's a
trail
great
cam.
idea. Great
I
idea.
mean, those $35.
Yeah.
How about the pipe and drum can watch out the back door?
Yeah.
Right, call the Fife and Drum, call
Yeah.
Club Getaway.
Yeah, that would be really nice to see what they do there. South Kent School is right near
South
that
Kent
area,
School.
so and they've got all those buildings right there. We could set that
Yeah.
up. Done.
If there's a house right by the railroad, they spray anyway?
Sorry?
If there's a house right at the railroad, right
Yes.
there on the edge of the railroad track, they spray anyway?
Yes.
Ooh,
I do have to tell you one last thing and then I'll get out of here. You know, it's important that they keep the brush and weeds down around the railroad tracks because it is a fire hazard. When we were kids growing up in Newtown, our summer job was to go out and put the fires out along the railroad tracks because they
Wow.
didn't do this. So it has a reason and we all have to be reasonable as we can be,
Right.
but we need to have control over
Because
it.
you're not growing that brush in the water, in
Correct.
the open
Right.
water.
Exactly. Or our
Or in
aquifer.
somebody's house.
Or in somebody's house, exactly,
Mhm.
right.
Okay,
Thank you all so much for
thank
putting
you.
up with my short surprise arrival and the time I've taken. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
Bruce.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'll
thanks
throw
for,
that other thing away because this is a.
I think I
rewrite of that.
actually gave it back to you because I ended up making two-sided
Ah,
copies.
Okay,
Unless it's in-
All right, we're gonna
Well,
move on
I
to the
ended
next
up-
agenda item.
thanks.
Have a good night.
Which is, we're into, number 5 old business now. And, A of our discussion items is the Kent Municipal Open Space Acquisition, effort. So my report on that, if you remember from our last meeting, we had our draft letter, which we sent to the Board of Selectmen. I appeared at the Select Board's meeting on January 25th and presented the letter. The Select Board was happy to name the Kent Conservation Commission as the lead municipal agency responsible for the acquisition of open space in the town. They were not certain at this point about about making a strong statement about joining us in going to the Board of Finance in endorsement of a land acquisition fund, which is fine because clearly this select board does not have the full history of what has come before in terms of working on the land acquisition fund. So at that point, I asked to come before the Board of Selectmen again this month. Their meeting is February 22nd. And I asked for a document repository to be created where we could put things like the reports of the open space commissions that were formed in, or committees, I guess you might call them, in 2007, and the one that reconvened and presented its report again in 2010, 2011, I think it was, before the last update of the POCD. And just basically, make that information available to the Board of Selectmen so that they have the same information as we do. So this morning, and I unfortunately got crunched for time, so I didn't complete this, but this morning I set out to begin writing a memo that would contain that history, compile the information that Wendy and Yost have already, worked so hard to, to collect, and, have something to present to the Board of Selectmen, not just in February, but I anticipate, it, as we have discussed before, it being a little bit of a longer endeavor as we go through the discussion of how should Kent's ordinance be set up, where might monies that would go into a fund come from, what's the best way to handle this, and what might it be used for. So I have a draft of that document, and it's not done. Happy to show it to you, but I also, it needs additional work, and I apologize. I wish that I was farther along. My thought, though, is that what gets presented to the Board of Selectmen in February is more of the history. Like, I don't think that we can do the whole thing because there's too much, but I think that if we can at least present to the Board of Selectmen, this is the timeline, this is what has come before, and here are the documents where you will look for that information, that I think that will get us some of the way.
So I hope they can read those reports before their meeting, so they can actually talk about it a bit and think about it.
Yes, and that is why it's important to do this cover memo, Yost, because I think that it is far more reasonable to imagine that the selectmen will read a cover memo that takes them 3 to 5 minutes than that they'll read, 2 14-page reports. I would love it if they would, but I think that at the very least, we can get them to read, a couple paragraphs, and that will be helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good
exactly.
plan.
Would be great.
Even an executive summary of what has come before, Jean, is
yeah.
gonna be like 6 pages
Oh.
long. There's so much, but I think that we are primed this year to get it over the hump finally. And you'll see some familiar names, and the timeline will, I hope be encouraging to you to know how many boards have looked at this before and got us to where we are today.
Thank you for doing this.
We're gonna do it, our commission this year. But I don't know what more you want to discuss with respect to that. Yost, I think I mentioned this last time that I found that the ordinance that you drafted to be really helpful. So, but I also found when I went back and looked at the second Open Space Committee's report that they proposed an ordinance too. I want to compare those, and I'm pretty sure they based theirs on Goshen's, as I know you did it as well. So I just want to do a crosswalk, just to see. Yeah,
Mhm.
there really is so much there.
Yep.
Anything else to discuss? Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Shall we move on to other chapters of the POCD and see what we might work on in addition to the open space, the land acquisition fund? Melissa
good.
and Yost have both done chapters, so I don't know. Do either of you want to go?
I can start. So
Do you
section,
want me to share up anything? I should have
what?
queued that up too. Do you want me to share what you wrote, Yost? Do you want me to?
Yeah, that unless everybody has a hold of them.
Do you guys know how to access all of that in the drive? So would you rather see Yost Or would you rather see a share screen?
It's better if they can read it, because I wasn't going to read the whole thing.
Oh, All
So
right,
it's better if you have it in front of you. Then
I need to just go, oh, here, I already have it. So bear with me for a moment. No, that's not it. Here it is. Let me just open this. We're scrolling. It's coming. Okay. Yos, which chapter do you intend to do?
4.1 and 4.3.
Okay. One more minute.
Are we to comment on this tonight or to read it after the meeting?
We are to comment on it tonight. It's more, it will be like what I did last time, if you remember, Wendy. It's almost like it's a report. Okay. So, sorry, just trying to get a good view so that I can put this up. All right. And now I'm just going to share my screen. Okay.
Success.
Yeah.
Telling me that a little bit bigger for people.
Uh,
On their screens, they might not be able to read it.
well, I wanted to make sure we could kind of see the whole thing because we did one page for each chapter. But and Yos is going to walk us through it. So, do you guys want me to make it bigger or
It's fine
want
on
it-
my screen.
what? It's fine.
I'm fine. I just have it open in my own.
Okay. Okay. All right, Yos, why don't you talk us through section 4.1 and what you found out and where the Conservation Commission is named as an organization or an agency that has a job.
Okay, so this is about maintaining and enhancing the Kent Village Center. So we have village district regulations with a special design review by an architectural review board. That's working pretty decently, I guess. And then we had an incentive housing study in 2016 that recommended increasing mixed use development in the Kent green area and promoting residential development in a true road connection in the field area just south of Town Hall. Not much has happened there, but the Planning and Zoning Commission would like to see more development there. I mean, that's the best area to develop instead of stretching out from the village. It's better to fill in open areas in the village like that. And there's a table with village center principles and concepts in the chapter. First thing mentioned is preserve open space and scenic views at 4 major gateways to the village center. So that's one thing we have to keep our eye on. There's several other things like maintain, enhance the character or function of the areas, connect streets, minimize dead ends. There's another thing that is important to us, I think, is try to create a walk to the Housatonic River with an overlook and along the river towards Flanders and River Road, which I would love to see a trail there. And at some point, if we get recreational easement or trail easement, from the Casey family who owns most of that. That would be something that we could try to work on. Then the policies that are recommended, some to continue, which is basically the just keep working on the physical appearance and economic vitality. Then you're using the overlay district provisions, etc. Put utility lines underground whenever possible. I actually have a question about that. With the new sidewalks, were there conduits put under the sidewalks, like was discussed earlier, in case the power lines would ever be buried? Then it would be able to be done cheaply. Jean, do you know that? Does anybody know that?
I don't believe so, because I think what we were told was that the power lines wouldn't actually get buried there, they get buried in the road.
Really? Yes, that seemed to make sense at the time, but anyway. So then the action steps, like complete streetscape improvement project, amend the zoning regulations, like increased building coverage. Planning and Zoning Commission is talking about that now. That's one of the things they want to work on, see if it can be made denser than allowed now. Plan for electric vehicle charging stations. There's some good information about various types that are available. And then for us, important, initiate a program to plant street trees in the village on an ongoing basis. So we are listed there. And I added in cooperation with the tree warden, which was Bruce Bennett.
We should have kept him.
Well, so it's
Yeah.
funny that you guys are talking about this, because when Bruce was here earlier this afternoon and he brought me this letter and we talked for a long time, I have really terrible clinical insomnia, so I am a night owl and I am on duty with the ambulance overnights on Friday nights, and so I find myself at 3 o'clock in the morning doing research on the internet and just wandering around about how to do new and interesting things for our town to make it a nicer place to live. And I came across, and I think this is actually somewhere in Europe, where this municipality had passed a resolution. I'm a little hesitant to say this on a recorded meeting because it's just an idea. Passed a resolution where any tree they take down, they have to plant one. And I thought that was a really great idea. And I pitched it to Bruce, saying it's just one of those like crazy ideas that I often have. But what do you think? And he's like, I think it's great. I think you should go talk to the Conservation Commission about it. I was like, that was my next stop. So I'll have to draft something up to, bring to you all, and then the board. And he said there's grant money where we could get some funding to replace, for the trees.
We even have some money that is
That's right.
specifically for trees. So this sounds like initiating a program, which sounds like doing yet another thing that's written in the POCD that people complain never gets
goes on
done
a shelf.
because people don't look
Right.
at it.
Connie, just check the waiting to see if Liddy's there.
Okay.
I haven't seen her flash across. Yeah, I just got my thing to.
So in this regards, I've also had talks with NSTAR and Chris Rose from Kent Center School and with Bruce about our yearly tree planting on Arbor Day. And so Monday we're going to meet and walk around and look at sites. And Bruce said that he was going to put together a list of where we need trees in Kent. So we'll look at that. And we can start with one tree at Arbor Day, but I think we can do more than one tree because we have this Cooper Fund. And I think it'd be great if we could plant several trees. And I'm willing to help, and Bruce is willing to help, and there are probably more people. He may be able to get Rick Osborne again to help with the machine if some big holes need to be dug. So I think we should start with the tree planting now, and there are plenty of places in town where we can add some additional trees. Just getting permission from the people there, from the property owners.
Right. Well, I'm all for it, and I think we have the money. I mean, that's the Sunichi Kuga Fund is groaning with money, and you get a much bigger story out of it if you put on Arbor Day not just one tree but 5. They wouldn't all have to be planted that day, but that the story would say that's what we're doing. It's the right time of year.
Bring some kindergartners along to throw some shovels full of dirt on there.
So let's see, Jos, what you come up with respect to needs. You know, we know we want to do this for 10 years, which is the the timeline of the POCD. So you know, it doesn't have to be a one and done, and we don't have to worry about expending the entire Kuga Fund in 1 year. But let's see if we can ramp up what we're doing with respect to street trees. You know, and I think it's great that the Kent Center School is expanding its boundaries with respect to what it would like to do for Arbor Day.
Yeah, they like to participate in it and go beyond the school.
That's great.
So let's go on with 4.3.
Does anyone have any
Okay, yeah.
questions or feedback on 4.1?
I do. I'm thinking that all of the buildings in the Kent Village Center, particularly the shopping center, have the potential for solar. And I don't know quite how to go about. I mean, for example, I don't know what the deal is on who owns the building that the IGA is in, but it's ridiculous that that rooftop isn't being used for that purpose.
John Casey owns all of those properties.
So I should go talk to John Casey then, I guess, because I mean, this is an opportunity that's just asking to be grabbed. So okay, that's what I'll do.
In 2.1, Wendy, the chapter that you will digest,
Right.
The Conservation Commission is mentioned in many of the recommendations in that chapter.
Yeah, okay. But because the POCD has many overlaps, I mean, we'll come back to the village center in several different sections, but it's something that should be there, I think.
You can't watch it in there, so I'll go upstairs.
Thank you.
Hi, Liddy.
Hello. Sorry about that, folks. I have taken on a new job, and the learning curve is very steep, and I got sidetracked.
We skipped over the treasurer's report, and we will return to it when we're done with this agenda item, which is the POCD chapter reviews. And
Okay, very good.
Jos, why don't we go ahead and do one more, since you were so good as to do that homework, which is chapter 4.3 or section 4.3. And
So yeah, that's guiding residential development. So that's in the whole town. Our village residential district is only really small. It's only 1% or less of the town. Rural residential is the bulk of the town. And so we have now a 2 to 5 acre area. It used to be minimum 1 acre with the last zoning regulation revision that was changed to 2 acres, except them for the Birch Hill area, which has been separated out. So while the village district is mostly served by public water and sewage, public sewage, multifamily housing is allowed there by special permit. In the rural district, no multifamily housing is allowed, and it's individual wells and septic systems, and it's all soil-based. So the better the soil, the smaller the lot you can have. Then in the let's see, yeah, in the community survey that was done, was brought up that housing affordability is probably the greatest challenge, and especially also for housing for the aging population and for the elderly. And so they discussed the 2022 housing plan that Connie took part in, and that gives a number of recommendations that are listed here, like expanding affordable housing, supporting affordable home buyer options, exploring partnerships with land trusts. I put that in bold because I guess that impacts us. I'm not sure how the land trust would deal with that. I don't know if Connie has any view on that, or it most probably does. So we can talk about that if needed. Then more accessory apartments. It has been made easier already in the revised zoning regulations. It can be made easier still. Then the housing plan also proposed a special committee to implement the plan, a housing coordinator, and affordable housing fund. I don't know if anything is happening on that, but there's be good things. And then keep using the soil-based zoning and the conservation development approach in the rural district. So in that last subdivision that is still in the courts, they introduced the conservation development approach also in the village district, which personally I'm not a fan of, but that's so in the courts. So I guess we can't talk about it too much. Then action steps, consider increasing the permitted density in the village housing overlay district if affordability restrictions are included. I think we definitely need affordable housing in there. Then review the regulations in the rural district with regard to allowing alternative types of residential development, allowing or requiring affordable units, and preserving open space and other plan conservation and development objectives. So I think we're not listed there. These are all listed as Planning and Zoning Commission things, but it's something we have to keep an eye on and stay involved in, and then further help implement the housing plan.
Great.
So there are a couple of things that involve us indirectly.
Thanks, Joost. That's a whole lot. A couple of just things of note. Number one, the lawsuit against the town and the P&Z over that North Main development has been dismissed.
Oh, really?
So we do have a conclusion on that. With respect to what the land trust or the land trust position on exploring partnerships, with affordable housing, I just wanted to let you know that the Connecticut Land Conservation Council sponsored a full day program last Wednesday, on land trusts and affordable housing and encouraging partnerships. I attended. I actually, you may recall that I sat on that housing plan subcommittee.
Right.
I encouraged the subcommittee members to attend with me, and Justin Potter did. And so we had lots of time to talk together over the course of that summit. You know, the people you would expect to be there from Northwest Connecticut were. Jocelyn Ayer was there. Jocelyn is now joined by Lindsay Larson, formerly of the Housatonic Valley Association, on her housing agency. And there were probably at least 30, maybe more people in the room who were from Northwest Connecticut. So it was really interesting to see that mix of housing advocates and land trust representatives, and the beginning of a conversation that I think will be continued, but a really good, very cooperative conversation.
Did you want me to present mine just to get it off our plate?
I don't know, does anyone have any comments about Yosa's digest of 4.3, ways that our Conservation Commission could be involved, particularly with respect to that second action step that he's bolded out, where, you know, the regulations that look to do a better job with alternative types of residential development while still paying attention to open space. Does anyone have any comments about any of that?
Connie, I have a comment about the affordable housing. I got in touch with Justin Potter, who is the chairman, I guess, saying that the Green Energy Initiative would like very much to work with them if they were thinking about any renovations. And he said, we're about to embark on another major building project. I don't know where it's going to be, but he couldn't have been more agreeable to the idea of our becoming involved in putting them in touch with, you know, whether it's architects who are specifically skilled in taking advantage of these new building technologies, or whether it's siting and the angles of the roof, or any number of things, insulation, new developments. They were very open to the idea. So we're going to work on that. But I also contacted Templeton Farm, and I haven't heard back from them yet, but partly I can't quite figure out whether they're a quasi-municipal or what. I mean, I would love to include them in our municipal assistance program, but they're on town land, I guess, but I don't know how the ownership works, which is going to be a critical issue, I suppose. Same thing with the Kent Memorial Library. They might come in under a municipal assistance program, but they are a private, you know, technically private, but they certainly serve a municipal function, and they receive quite a bit of money from the town now. So I don't know. These are legal questions that I need to discuss with Jean.
Who did you contact at Templeton Farm?
Tegan
Egan.
Gallo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got the names from Catherine Backrack. And I know she's co-chair with somebody.
Yeah, so the land is owned by the Kent Housing for the Elderly. There's a board that runs and maintains the facility at 16 Swifts Lane at Templeton Farms, and then they get USDA funding.
Yeah, but does that make them, could they come in under a municipal program with the Green Bank? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a question for the Green Bank, because they subsidized housing, federally subsidized housing, so maybe that would, but I don't know enough about the Green Bank.
Yeah.
Do they get grant money from the town? In the
They-
budget?
I believe they get a little,
Yeah.
we.
Looking it up.
It- It's so much easier to get started with these large buildings, either commercial buildings or housing developments, and try to sell solar and heat pumps, et cetera, and weatherization to them than it is to go house by house by house. So I
They
thought,
get 5,000 from the town annually for a grant. So they might qualify as in some way by the Green Bank.
okay, well, the Green Bank and I are already in touch about reapplying the
Yeah,
buildings.
kind of like how the firehouse was eligible, even though they're a 501c3, they get funding from the town. So if you follow that logic, then I would say probably, and probably with the library. But I'm not.
But some of these groups, like the Firehouse, are so nervous about yielding any of their power. I mean, they were glad that they failed originally. That's what I was told by Matt Winter and others, because they wanted to go out in the marketplace themselves and find solar. But I don't think anything ever happened. I mean, that was 2 years ago.
But I wouldn't say that they were glad that.
Well, they were relieved. They were relieved. Let's say.
Yeah, and we do have just for the, sanity of your minute taker. Let's talk about Green Energy Task Force when we get to Green Energy Task Force. And if there are any other comments with respect to the actions in the POCD about guiding residential development, let's hear them. I would say, Melissa, although I do really appreciate that you prepared your digest of your chapter, I think that we should move on just in the interest of time, so that we can get through the remainder of the agenda. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Mine's really short. Really.
Connie,
Mike?
I wanted to follow up with Yos if we have a moment, regarding reviewing the regulations with regard to allowing alternative types of residential development. Is this potentially contemplating something along the lines of allowing more dense development in certain parts of the rural district? Is that the idea, Yos?
I don't think it is. I mean, this is what it says in the plan of conservation and development, but I mean, what they did change was to make conservation style development or cluster zoning the default and the standard 2 acre, 5 acre lot development, the exception. But they haven't really talked about any other alternative types. The state, some legislators in the desegregate Connecticut, they want to get more legislation that requires more housing to be built in towns like ours. That would influence our zoning potentially, but that's all up in the air, and I don't know how much of that would pass.
Yost, can you remind us when the P&Z is considering those regs? What's the month? They had that calendar. Do you remember?
I don't have it there right now. They're not talking about it this month. It's not on their agenda. But their consultant is working on several of those items, and he'll bring it up. I think something was due in March, so I expect probably next month to see some stuff.
I can look, but I can't look while the owl is going because
There's nothing on their Google Drive yet for this.
yeah, no, they published that schedule. It looks like a calendar.
Well, yeah, they did that.
And I noticed it's interesting that you bring up Desegregate Connecticut because they are on the POCD's, they are on the P&Z's agenda for tomorrow night.
Right.
Okay, anything more? Let's move on, actually, by going back and taking agenda item 3, the treasurer's report.
Okay, this, there's very little change. We had only one expense that came in under public events and conferences. So our remaining balance is $2,225.87. So as I say, there was just the one expense reimbursing Wendy. But what we do need to discuss is a budget going forward. And I don't know if any of you have thought about what the budget should be. What we've done for the last few years is just ask for the same budget year after year. I don't know whether you feel that's appropriate or not.
I
That's
saw in
what's
the
in the
budget
budget.
proposal.
They started meeting today and that's what's in the budget
Right.
draft already.
I'm sorry, Melissa, I missed that.
They started meeting today and that is what is in the budget draft right now. Is
Oh,
a
okay.
0% increase, exactly what we asked for the last 5+ years at least, if not more.
Right.
So
Okay. So we just leave it at that then?
I think that makes a lot of sense because this is the year that we're gonna get it all done again. We're at COVID and we're gonna do it all.
I hope so. That'll be great.
The only thing that I can think of, and it's just, you know, I don't know that we know enough to know, it's to say, now, is that I did notice in my review of how different towns approached their land acquisition fund that, you know, there was a study done. And I'm trying to remember what town did this, but there was a town that did a very good job at studying the impact of a land acquisition fund on, you know, on town economics. And it was done by a consultant. The name was Paula Stahl, I want to say. But I thought, you know, if we ever wanted to do something like that, it would cost money. Let me see if I can find what that was. I really apologize that I'm not more prepared for this. I should have known that going to the Chocolate Fest would put me out of commission for being recently.
Connie, get that information to me when you can find it. And I'll see what other towns have done and see if it's appropriate at this point to hire a consultant, or do we wait a while and then?
Okay, so I do, so what I don't have is how much it might cost. But it was Colchester. The town of Colchester conducted they had a combined cost of community services study, build out analysis, which we've already done, and fiscal impact projection. And they did this in 2013, so quite some time ago. But when I looked at that, it was like, it was a way of making a very detailed and granular case statement for what a land acquisition fund might be able to do for a town. And when I saw that, you know, it was complex enough that I thought it would be a real reach that for any of us to do it as volunteers that don't have a ton of time and don't have the credentials to prepare that kind of report. So that was what in my head went, oh, maybe this is a budget item, but I have no idea, Liddy, how much it would cost. You know, I can investigate that if you guys are interested, and I'm also happy to send you this study so that you can see what I'm talking about and draw a conclusion on your own as to whether or not it would be useful.
Because I can well imagine that this is the kind of study that would be appreciated in trying to sell this idea.
I would also say that, you know, if we submit this budget and we're moving forward and we find that we need funding to do a study like that, you know, I hear Rufus say it over and over again in the Board of Selectmen meetings. You just come to us and talk to us and ask us and we'll see what we can do. So I'm not you know, that's part of this whole conversation at the Board of Selectmen level is we're partners with the Board of Selectmen, we're partners with Inland Wetlands and P and Z, and so if that's a useful study to have, we're gonna find the money somewhere. So,
Okay,
But a long time ago,
Oh.
2013.
Okay.
Okay, but I do have the name of the consultant, so
Okay.
I may be able to do some research on her and what she does. She's still practicing. Okay, and I think that, you know, otherwise going with our same budget is probably a good course.
well, even that, you know, we have items in there, our printing and mapping expenses, $1,000. And what are we gonna spend it on? I mean,
Right.
We thought we were gonna do it on open space plan and the NCRI update, so it's there for us to tap into.
I'm just not sure is, you know, is what somebody with this woman's qualifications going to produce? Is that a $1,000 report, or is it more like a $6,000 report? So
I hear you.
maybe I
Okay.
can find out some more information on that.
That would be good, yep. So that's it for the treasurer's report.
All right. And I do want to mention that the CLCC conference is upcoming in March. So that is another conference that members of our commission have gone to. And so just to put that out there as an option for any of you that are interested in attending.
Yep, very definitely.
Okay.
Do you remember the date, Connie?
I don't remember, but I have it down. It's a Saturday, March. It is. Oh, it is the 18th, maybe? No, it's the 25th.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, let's move into old business 5C, Sustainable Materials Management in Kent. Glad to have Jean with us this evening.
Connie, do you want to unview your screen so we can see everybody at once?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Much better. Okay, we have two items under that, Jean. One is the new law, the new eligibility for of certain drinks containers.
Oh,
And I know, being a customer of the transfer station, that Rick has begun collecting some new items. I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you could talk about those if you know, and if not, I can say something general. And then base pricing is something that we heard a little bit about, as you know, the direction that organics recycling seems to be heading.
yeah. So the redemption eligibility, I have it printed out in my office, but I can forward that, find it and forward it to Jen. I think Jen Jones gave it to me. So I'll have to follow up with that. But the unit-based pricing, exactly what you were saying, Connie, unit-based pricing and composting have now been married together. And I mean, they really are married. And so they're, the grant that HRRA has applied for is now has those two things tethered together. So we would be doing, at the transfer station, we would be doing a pilot for unit-based pricing, or pay to throw, pay as you throw. There's lots of different names. And then as well, we would be doing a composting pilot, but the two are tethered. We can't do one without the other. And Jen Heaton Jones has been one arm paper hanging it with this legislative session. So I haven't talked to her about this in probably 2 weeks. So I don't know where that that grant application is right now. I know that, I mean, she's been saying all along, it's coming. There's been a little bit of shifting and pivoting with the government about that. So I just have to catch up with her on that, and I'll follow up.
So what does pilot mean? Does it mean it's voluntary and only people who want to participate in it take part, or?
We have to work out the details. It would obviously be the transfer station users. It wouldn't be anybody who has curbside, private curbside. I'm sure there are grant requirements. So we'd have to, we have to get through all those grant requirements and come up with a program with Jen.
But the pay as you throw, that only works if everybody takes part in it, right? That can't really be voluntary. I mean, organics can be voluntary, but pay as you throw.
Well, the reason they work together is your garbage is lighter.
Right.
If you pay as you throw, but you remove organics and other recyclable materials, then your garbage is lighter. So it's not really that you are electing to do something good by composting. It is that you are saving yourself money by composting because the diversion of organic material is allowed and provided for by your servicer, right? So the Kent Transfer Station is doing you a favor by allowing you to compost organic waste that would otherwise make your trash very heavy. It's more of a stick than a carrot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a stick with a fluffy end on it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that when we initially started looking into both organics recycling and pay as you throw, I remember attending a webinar, probably something that I got through HRRA,
Mhm.
but a webinar that talked about the unpopularity of pay as you throw, and this idea that a lot of community relations and education needed to be packaged around it. But I guess if there's no alternative, then you don't need to worry about that. It can be unpopular, but it also is just the way it is.
Was that the
So,
woman from Maine?
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, they did have an interesting sort of journey. And I think just in the last, that was probably almost 4 years ago, if I had to guess, I think there's been, because this has really come to the forefront, especially in Connecticut, there's more visibility and understanding, but it is going to involve a lot of public education, getting people to understand. There will be specifically colored bags for pay as you throw, and you as a family or you as anybody as a permit holder will get a certain number of bags, and it's all based on the tonnage that we use, and there's a whole formula for it. And then you find that you need more bags, then you would have to purchase them. And we would probably partner with the hardware store and the IGA to make them available there for people to purchase. So it's beyond just, you don't have to go to the transfer station to purchase them. If you wanted to purchase them on a Tuesday, you could go to Ace Hardware and purchase them, or to the IGA. So that's sort of where, and this is all based on the tons of information that Jen's provided to all the HRRA towns. So it's that change is the challenge.
Well, if we are able to do organics at the same time at the transfer station, that will be a great service.
Yeah.
Because your garbage really can get quite heavy.
Yeah.
When you aren't able to do that diversion. And I know we talk perennially about the ability to compost certain things like, meat and bones, and, so the more we're able to do,
Right.
the more we're able to divert, the better we'll all do.
Right. And doing this at the transfer station enables us to be, we would have a commercial composting company that HRA would contract with. And because they're these big commercial places, there's a place down in New Milford called New Milford Farms
Right.
on that, it's that road, I always forget the name of it, kind of goes around the backside
Pickett
where the
District.
Hershey Pickett District. And that's where New Milford Farms
Oh,
is,
no.
and yeah, it's not.
Housatonic Avenue,
On the other side of the river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Youngsfield Road.
yeah, Youngsfield is back there, and the old Nestle plant is back
Yeah.
there. Anyway,
Boardman Bridge.
Boardman
yes,
Bridge.
Boardman
You
Bridge,
will
and
know.
that thing, that road that loops around. Anyway, so New Milford Farms is there, and you'll see when you go over Boardman Bridge, these mountains of mulch, those are their compost piles, and because they're these big commercial piles and they get very, very hot, they're able to process, like Connie was saying, bones, much more beyond what we backyard composters compost. Yeah, and tethering them together, the statistics and the data shows that you can reduce your municipal solid waste up to 40%. So that's massive,
It could be even more.
right?
Right. I mean, yeah.
And with Mira, you know, the whole disaster with Mira, it's something has to happen because we're overdue. Should have probably been done, 20 years ago, but there was no, that site, it wasn't in view then.
Everything goes so slow. They've been talking about this for so many years and
Yep.
they still don't have anything ready.
When I was up at state government, we used to refer to it as the glacial pace of state government.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jean, I just wanted to ask you on the redemption eligible, going back to item 1. Since they kind of, at the transfer station, they kind of expect people to be following that, but is there going to be like an education outreach or in the newsletter or something out to the town to explain what it is and how to do it?
Yeah, I was hoping that HRRA was gonna generate, maybe an infographic or some sort of outreach. They just hired a new outreach person, so I can contact Jen. The way that Deep, sort of delivered it is very narrative, long paragraph, painful. Nobody will ever consume it. So hopefully HRRA is working on something,
And it will only be for a certain number of months that we have to live in this gray
Right, this,
area
like, yeah.
because we
overlap
just need to
kind of
give
thing.
the producers time to change their packaging so
Right.
that the redemption notice will be on it the same way as you see it on all of your, soda cans and things like that. But I do know that Rick Osborne and Zach are doing what they can to watch what goes into the single stream and pick out things that might be redeemed, like your orange juice container. If it's going into the single stream, it's recycled anyway. So, I guess, it's costing a potential 5 cents that could go to the KCS Scholarship Fund. So, we do care that they get in there. But when in doubt, at least recycle.
So do cardboard containers also now qualify then?
No,
No. So what did you mean with the orange juice containers?
so
Thick orange juice containers.
like my big plastic Tropicana,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
but
Plastic.
also the little ones that you buy in the Patco, the single serve ones. So it's just different types of beverages. It got expanded to different types of beverages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are doing a fabulous job at, they stand there pulling everything back out and I just feel so bad for them, but
it's really
I guess
brutal.
once the right graphics are available, it'll get around.
And if you can send that list, that would
Yeah.
be helpful because I can at least distribute it among the commission and
Yeah.
depending on how it looks, maybe it even goes on Facebook.
And yeah, I mean, even before this passed and became effective, they pull an enormous amount of materials out of the single stream that people don't know. A big, go figure, tissues, like
Oh, yeah, no, you can't recycle.
all the
tissues.
time, all the time. And it's
Wrapping paper.
wrapping paper. Yeah, there's so
Pizza
much
boxes.
back
Don't
out.
put the pizza box in.
Boxes.
Pizza boxes. I burn my
Sometimes you
pizza
can rip
boxes.
them in half. Yeah.
Um,
I put it in the fireplace.
so the bill, the bottle bill, I
Oh.
know it's lower in the agenda, except that it does relate to this. So I don't know if you want to discuss it now or not.
Let's wait, if you don't mind. Let's try to get through. It's shaping up to be a long meeting. I'd like to close by 8:30 if possible. Because I just want to keep our meetings 2 hours and under. But
Connie,
we'll,
I do have to go shortly.
well, I appreciate your time. And again, let's try to march through the meeting agenda as quickly as we can. Let's move on to the Green Energy Task Force update as needed.
I have one question. Jean, has your newsletter gone out for January?
No, not yet. It's just been a very hectic month. It's sitting here open on my laptop. Hopefully I'll work on it tonight.
You know, the one thing I was hoping to accomplish was to find some more people interested in what we're doing. Right now, I'm pretty much a one-man band, although I have 2 or 3 other people, and I'm linking them to some Zoom things that are very informative. But as I said, my focus right now is on the big buildings where there might be fewer people that I had to talk to and accomplish more. That's probably all I need to say right now, but I am working with Emily Basham on signing up for one of their municipal, that's called MAP, Municipal Alliance or Assistance Program. And I've recommended, because I think it's the best system for the town hall, is to have the solar on canopies at the far end of the parking lot. Just how many panels will fit there, I'm waiting to hear. But if they do go in, right away we have trees that are going to have to come down, those evergreens, unless they can be moved. Because the whole setup has to be at the end of the parking lot.
We planted those evergreens, Wendy,
Yeah, well,
as part of Kuga and whatnot.
well, you know, I don't know how easily they can be moved. They're still.
In order to
Not
plant those,
easily.
in order to plant those, we had to get permission from John Casey because the property line is right over there too.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, you know, bad choices. But there's no place else. You know, ideally, we'd buy a piece of land from John Casey and put them on those open fields, which I thought were wetlands anyway. I'm surprised that it's even being suggested that we could build down there, but anyway, that's probably all I'm going to say tonight because I'm choking. So, any questions?
Sorry, feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sustainable CT.
I don't have too much other than we lost another member. I had a very long conversation with Jess Leclerc from Sustainable CT to sort of just get some pearls of wisdom from her to try to regroup and focus on bronze certification for, they have 2 open times, okay, where you can apply for certification, and so we would likely be doing it in the later one in August. And I sent out an email just the other day to the other 2 members to come up with a date for a meeting. So I didn't hear back from one of them yet, but we'll be planning a meeting in the next couple of weeks to sort of regroup and keep moving forward.
Okay, questions, anyone?
They did a great webinar for the Envirothon kids that I ended up watching with Aiden over the weekend about climate change, because they're going to be heavily involved in Envirothon this year in the final challenge for the students.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, it was kind of cool from Sustainable CT.
So,
Someone was in the audience from Cornwall and they highlighted Katie Freigang.
yeah, and we're
Bye,
looking
everybody.
who
Bye,
might,
Mike.
See you.
Bye, Mike. Thank you.
I might.
They're dropping like flies. Okay. So this is one way to make your meetings shorter. If your people leave. I don't know if this happens at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
It does turn to towards the end, but our meetings are way long.
Okay, let's move to new business and talk about KCS tree maintenance. Do we still have enough people to vote on this? We do. Me,
Yeah.
Melissa, Liddy, Carol, great. Okay. Because this is an item where we will vote. So I think you all, I don't know if you all know about this actually, because I can't remember who the emails went to, which is why I wanted to bring it to
I
this.
only sent the email to you and to Liddy because otherwise
I got
would
it
be,
too.
Yeah, I
a
got it.
meeting thing. So I only asked the two of you. I
No,
checked.
you put me on the email, or someone put me on the
Well,
email. There was a
then
question
Connie,
about,
Connie CC'd you.
yeah, I still have to get back to you on that.
For the purposes of the record, let's articulate what we're talking about, which is that following our conversation at the last meeting about the any maintenance needs that the Kent Center School campus might have that we could help with, especially since we had set money aside for the purpose of doing so. Subsequent to that conversation, Yost went and surveyed the grounds and made some observations about needed maintenance. And Yost, I want you, just because I want to make sure that that we have it right, and I'm not sure I remember it correctly. Could you just let us know what it was that you thought needed to be done, and again your offer of what it might take you, given your expertise in this field, to perform that work for us.
So there's just a bit of pruning needed on some of the trees, and at most it would cost $100. If you want to budget $100 for it, that should be enough.
And this would come
Maybe
out
it'll
of
be
the,
less.
this would come out of the Cougar fund that we have allocated for
Right,
them.
right.
And you also, is this
And-
tree pruning in the trees that we planted around town, or is this at Kent Center School?
This is the ones at Kent Center School.
Uh-huh, okay.
I checked the ones in town too, and they were looking good so far.
Oh, good, okay.
And some have developed really well. And with the ones in town, I also find it difficult because then you have to ask the homeowner, say, can I work on your tree? But
Right.
they're all in good shape, so I don't think.
Okay.
they-
Good.
Yost, can you tell us for the record what, in terms of, it costing $100 max, like what type of, what hours, how many hours would you expect that would be? And what does that mean with respect to the rate that you would be charging?
I charge $50 an hour, and I'd say between 1 and 2 hours. That's all.
Okay,
Just to maintain consistency with, regular conflict of interest type rules, I would say that we've now had this conversation. I would like to move through the legislative watch list if Yost wants to listen to that. But I think that the motion and discussion and vote on Yos's proposal should come without Yos in the room, and that's for a matter of procedure.
Let's see. Well,
How does he do that?
That's why I'm saying, I think maybe we should do the legislative watch and then.
Wait, Yost, don't go anywhere yet.
Yeah.
Do
We're
it
not asking
afterwards?
you to leave.
Oh, okay.
The items that we want to talk about in the legislative sessions, and then you can go and we'll do this as the last thing before we all sign off.
Okay. And one other thing was that at the Kent Center School, the outdoor classroom, and 3 of the shrubs had died. 3 summer sweet shrubs that need to be replaced.
And
And
I've requested a proposal from the greenhouse on what they'll charge us for that. So when they come in, let me know.
okay. And the committee there at the school doesn't exist anymore.
We do not exist anymore, correct?
Okay.
But they use the classroom a lot, so
Mm-hmm.
we did a good work to get it done, and it's a very useful space, so.
What's the committee that doesn't exist anymore, Melissa?
We had a schoolyard habitat committee that Dana and I were part of, and I can't even remember who.
Josh.
We had students, yeah, Josh. We had students every year apply to be on the committee, which was great because we could walk them through how to do all of this stuff. You know, it was like they had their own little conservation commission almost, but it was with their own.
Right.
So
And that doesn't exist. That's
If
too
the
bad.
bushes need to be replaced, and Melissa, you're getting the quote on that, is that just for the price of the bushes? Or would they be putting them in, or should we have, is Yost putting them in and we should add that to his hours tonight?
we should not add that to his hours tonight. If Yost puts it in, we'll deal with it then. If the greenhouse
Okay.
puts it in, they'll include it in their proposal to us.
Separate,
Yeah, yeah,
separate invoice. Yeah.
absolutely.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
The product isn't even in inventory right now, so it's kind of a moot point.
Okay, legislative watch list. You know, we just compiled, we have a whole bunch of bills on here. They're moving through at different paces. Nothing seem to be hot as yet, although in the interim of preparing this agenda, really, we have an aspect of the bottle bill coming up that is worthy of discussion, and Jean has in the period of this meeting forwarded me testimony on that last one, the EPR for tires. So maybe we can just hear about those two, and then you have the hyperlinks. You can always check in and see where these bills are at, but as they become ripe or things start to happen around them, we can take them for discussion. So maybe Melissa, do you want to talk about the bottle bill?
Yeah, so I noticed, and you guys all get the emails, I think, for the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. So I asked Maria exactly what was going on, and so I can read you the description if you want. She said, as you know, this bill was super hard to pass. Lobbyists from the wine and spirit industry killed it year after year. When we passed the bill, finally, which was last session, we made an explicit deal to exclude spirit-based sellers, hard ciders, from the bill. Though the language was ambiguous, there was an explicit exchange on the floor. Recently, the Deep Commissioner decided on her own to change that, and now we need to make the change in order to live up to the deal we made. So we've posted on our own Conservation Commission page because it is happening this week. You can contact your state senator, your House rep, submit testimony, whatever is your opinion, but it's certainly something that we all discussed years and years. I mean, this has come through our commission in talking about this bottle bill for so long, and it's kind of a shame that they got it through and now there's this wrinkle and things are going to get backed away from. So
So is that 5120?
I didn't look for I just did not look for the number.
Yeah, there's three. There's 5120,
Well, it's different amendments of it, you know?
an act eliminating the bottle bill. That's
Mhm.
just flat.
It doesn't
yeah.
say
That there's different, yeah, they'll that is
Also,
not the one Maria will bring up. She has one that she has been staged to bring up, I think.
These are all proposed bills.
yeah, so then there's a 312. And then, am I gonna do that? Yeah, 312 isn't, but that's a Senate bill, so it wouldn't be, Maria's an introducer of of the bill that you're talking about?
The amendment of the bill, she will be.
Amendment to the bill, okay. So there's a Senate bill, an act studying the behavioral impact of bottle bill deposits on recycling and delaying implementation of increased deposit fees until such study is completed.
Lovely.
And I
So
don't,
we need to make sure that our voices are heard, that's all.
it's one of those. There's no, it doesn't look like there's a hearing.
Yeah, these are
scheduled
all,
yet.
Melissa, have they even, has this bill even made it? I mean, it's not out of committee. Nothing is at this point, right?
Yeah,
No,
this
they
is,
have some stuff out of committee.
yeah, just today, I think, but
Yeah.
this was referred to the Joint Committee on Environment. Tomorrow I was looking to see when the meeting was, but there was some environmental committee that, now I closed the tab, but it was canceled for tomorrow, but I don't know if that was it. House Select Committee on Sustainable and Renewable Energy.
I don't think so.
They canceled it and they pulled the agenda, so you can't even see what the agenda was to be, but there's nothing else on the floor. There's like a homeless response system press conference, aging committee, house session, so maybe it's
On our conservation page is the link to the CTLCV to provide testimony, so.
Which
I'll
I
let-
thought, Connecticut League of Conservation Voters email was very confusing.
Well, I think it's confusing because the actual issue is confusing. I mean, there's a lot going on right now and a lot of them are confusing. That's why I asked her to summarize in plain English, because I wasn't gonna be able to relay exactly what was going on to you guys.
Now,
okay.
does Maria think that we're forced to accept this deal? That she doesn't have any choice but to accept it, or?
Yeah, I think because it's connected to other things that, yeah, that's kind of where she's feeling, but you know, other amendments could be brought up between now and then, so we'll see. You know, I don't know, we'll see.
Let's talk about EPR for tires. That's another one that is a wrinkle, because when I scanned your not particularly scannable email,
Yeah.
it seemed like a bill that you would have expected people would be in favor of. They were in favor of, but there were certain provisions that weren't necessarily desirable. So can you tell us what's going on with that?
Sure. So we met, Jen Heaton Jones, had a meeting with HRRA, members to discuss prep for submitting testimony. And there were, I think there were 2 legislators on the meeting, but, so there's an issue with the bill, and basically it puts here, let me pull up my,
Does everyone
Sorry, it's
remember what
late for my
EPR
brain.
means? Extended producer responsibility, when you put the cost on the producer to make
So like
things
the
recyclable.
yeah. So that's the one thing that it doesn't do. It doesn't create a stewardship organization to manage the EPR part of it. And like the paint program, like there was a propane EPR bill last year that did not end up getting enough traction. And so during this lengthy discussion and my experience of writing legislation and commenting on legislation when I was at DPH, the legislators are looking for basically that like first and second sentence when they look at the submitted testimony. And so we went back and forth because we originally started out with a support statement at the beginning of our written testimony, but as we flowed through the conversation and the legislators commented and I offered some comment, it was agreed that we should oppose the bill with conditions of we support the concept, but we oppose the bill. And so that was the testimony that those of us who submitted testimony submitted, I think, a week ago Sunday.
I will send it around to you all so you can see it.
It's lengthy. I actually edited out a bunch of stuff, but I also added in because I really wanted the legislators to know that, for instance, so we listed a bunch of concerns. We don't have really a cost-effective outlet for tires for our residents. We don't take them at the transfer station. I don't know if the new garage at where DNS used to be, that's now I think called Tobin's, if they're going to be accepting them. We have a unique problem that a lot of small rural places, a lot of rural towns have, where people, these companies who will pick up massive loads of tires, they pull off the ones that they can either use for retreads or whatever they would use them for. They will often drive out into rural places where municipalities don't have cameras all over the place and have lots of dead end roads that have very few people living on them, and they'll use them as a dumping ground. So there were some things that I wanted to make sure that sort of gave the rural voice to this issue. So that was that. I had a conflict. I was actually at the LOB earlier in the day, but was at a
So
press
you don't know
conference.
what
So,
happened.
well, Jen said it went well. I haven't followed up with her, but I was going to give oral testimony, but this press conference for another issue went much longer than I thought it would. So
If if there are things as the session progresses that, where you submit testimony or if you think
Yeah.
we should be aware or whatever, always feel free to share those things that would be of interest to us.
And I think it would be great for, as you see what's coming up and what's getting put in front of hearings, that if the commission has, you guys have another voice, in addition to me as the first selectman representing the Board of Selectmen, more voices. I think, these legislators are looking for, repetition in the great bolus of some testimony that they get. And I think that as a conservation, you are wholly conservation focused. I think that popping up on the list of written testimony would be meaningful for these conservation related bills. And I know it really hasn't been a priority of our boards and commissions, but I really think it should be. The legislators want to hear from their municipalities, whether it's the individuals or organizations that are either stewardship organizations or advocacy organizations, and you guys kind of hit both of those buckets. So I think it's important. And in previous other things that I've been involved in, organizations sometimes will, everybody's got their legislative priorities that they identify before the legislative session. COST does, CCM does, or COG does, and maybe that's something that the Conservation Commission or any of the boards and commissions sort of takes on and decides at the beginning of a legislative session, here are the priorities, and we will agree to submit testimony, and often you can partner with the League of Conservation Voters, and they'll give you a template to
Yeah.
support or oppose. You see that a lot, which is great, because
I think it's really helpful. We have this great relationship with Maria, especially given her committee assignments. And, for me, it's really just not getting lost in a whole lot of bills that, really don't have any chance of making it forward. So we want to make sure that if we are going to act, if we are going to lend our voice, it's going to be to something that is actually meaningful, so that we're not continually just providing testimony towards a lost cause. So to really keep our focus on places where we might actually have an influence is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think those jumping off places of like the League of Conservation Voters, where I'm sure they have they publish their.
They're not going to ask for
priorities.
your input unless they think it might make a difference, usually.
No, I mean, if they're
Oh,
going
like
to
their
provide
legislative priorities.
Yeah.
Those documents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the other 3 organizations also have them. So that's also a good jumping off spot. I did text Jen Heaton Jones for the bill number, and she couldn't remember the name of it and she was in the grocery store, but she said the bill is to undo what happened last year. She says it won't go anywhere, but then she said, then there's the issue with hard cider. So it seems like there may be 2 different bills, unless it's one bill with that amendment that you were talking about, Melissa. It's such early days. There's so much chasing. My bill watch report it's pretty much always open. I think it's like 18 pages at this point.
The problem with the bottle bill and the amendment is that it's attached to the guardrails bill. So that just shows the power of like the spirits industry has on our financial status, on our budget. And so it'll be interesting to watch, but it's kind of depressing.
So I remember seeing that, and I didn't even finish reading that yet.
All right. Well, let's keep following. Still early days. Lot can and will happen before the session wraps. Okay. Anything else on that legislative watch list that anyone wants to mention? And otherwise, let's move on to correspondence, of which there is none. And before we adjourn, we'll have Jos exit the room so that we can discuss his proposal.
Okay, see you all.
Thank you, Jos. I hope you feel better.
Yep. Thanks.
All right.
Are you looking for a motion?
I am. Is there any? So why don't we make the motion? We'll have a discussion.
I will make a motion to authorize us to pay Jos $100 out of the Kuga fund to prune the trees and bushes at Kent Center School, as identified in his email. Don't go anywhere, Liddy.
I'll second it. Sorry, I'm scribbling, but I think I can get the gist of it in our minutes. Is there any discussion? I have no idea what I mean, benchmarking wise, I don't really know if that's a good rate, bad rate. I don't know if it's Jos's normal rate, if it's less.
I think it's great that we have Jos as an advisor to our committee and able to always have a handle on the pulse of what is needed within our town, but specifically at our school. And so I think it's a reasonable ask and he removes all of the debris and everything like that, which is a help to our school maintenance
I think
staff.
it's-
So
I think it's money well spent.
exactly. I have no question that he's giving us a good deal and that he knows how to do exactly what's needed on those trees. So I have no problem.
Carol? I think, Yos obviously knows his trade very well. He knows us very well. He knows the school very well. He will report back to us. There are many advantages to having Yos do this work. The rate seems fair.
I
If
agree.
we're ready to vote, then we should vote.
I vote for, I vote for hiring him.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. I will let Yos know. Thank you.
Terrific. And when I get his invoice, we'll pay him
From the Kuga Fund.
from the Cougar Fund, perhaps.
Okay.
Thanks, Liddy.
Okay.
Great. Well, here we are on the dot at 8:30. So it didn't seem possible, but we were able to finish the meeting within 2 hours. I appreciate your time. And
Okey-doke.
we will look forward to seeing you on March 8th for our next meeting.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.